Hi, this is Steve Olsher, the founder and editor-in-chief of Podcast Magazine, and I am a guest today on The Inspiring Show.
Welcome to The Inspiring Show with Paul and Jennifer Hensel, featuring inspiring interviews with thought leaders, storytellers, entrepreneurs, influencers, and legacy builders just like you. Learn from experts about finding your voice, mastering your mindset, and creating movements with your message. Tap into timeless wisdom and today's top strategies for transcending to new levels of success, happiness, and joy.
Hi, everyone. This is Paul Hensel.
And I'm Jennifer Hensel. And our guest today is Steve Olsher of Podcast Magazine. And he has something in there called Hot 50. And you can vote for your favorite podcast. So go now to our website, inspiringshow.com, and click on this episode with Steve Olsher and vote for us in the Hot 50. We really appreciate it.
Now, Steve Olsher is known as the world's foremost reinvention expert. He is famous for helping individuals and corporations become exceptionally clear on their what. That is the one thing they were created to do. His practical, no-holds-barred approach to life and business propels his clients towards achieving massive profitability while also cultivating a life of purpose, conviction, and contribution. Now, Steve has been an entrepreneur for more than 30 years. He is the founder and editor-in-chief of Podcast Magazine, original chairman and founder of Liquor.com, online pioneer who launched on CompuServe's Electric Mall in 1993, New York Times best-selling author of What is Your What? Discover the One Amazing Thing You Were Born to Do, real estate developer, creator of the New Media Summit, host of the #1 rated podcast, Reinvention Radio and Beyond Eight Figures. He is an international keynote speaker and an in-demand media guest who has appeared on CNN, the Huffington Post, the cover of Founder Magazine, and countless other media outlets. Wow, that is a lot. So as you can see, that's why he's known as the reinvention expert. So hope you enjoy today's episode with Steve Olsher. Hey, well, thank you so much for joining us today, Steve. It's such a pleasure to have you as a guest.
I appreciate you having me.
You've been such an inspiration to us, and we just love your entrepreneurial journey.
Well, it has been a journey. no doubt at all about that. Thank you. Yeah, lots of stops along that path for sure.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask you, could you just briefly tell us about growing up in Illinois and then the first time you reinvented yourself? Because you're known as the reinvention expert.
I do a lot of that, both for myself and for others, that's for sure. So, Illinois, it's an interesting place to say the least. I mean, obviously, formed me into the man I am today. And growing up in, technically it was Skokie, but we called it Skevinston because it was the Evanston school district but I lived in Skokie. So we got confused from a very young age. But growing up there and then living in Chicago from 87 on until we moved to San Diego in 2000 and I guess I was 14 when we moved to San Diego. It's, there's a lot to be said for Midwestern values and just the Chicago grit that you end up with going hand in hand with having to deal with, the weather and the challenges and everything else that you have going on there. But, I would certainly say that Illinois is very different up north in terms of where I grew up versus what happens when you get to the central part of the state and then the southern part of the state when I went to school at Southern Illinois University. So it just depends, I think, also on where you are in the state.
So what, before you reinvented yourself for the first time, what did you do?
I think the first official reinvention was when I had been playing drums for about 10 years throughout junior high and high school and a little bit in college. And then I just really decided it was time to change course. And a lot of my identity had been caught up in in being a drummer and just playing in the different bands and so on. But having a love for music and growing up, in the Chicago area, and being a really big fan of dance music and the Chicago house music scene that was going on there, from the time that I was, really fairly young. I mean, in my early teens is when I first became introduced to the Chicago house music scene. So I've always really been inspired and just really loving on that music. So it seemed like a natural next step to reinvent, and actually become a DJ, and then eventually a nightclub owner.
Oh, wow. And now you founded liquor.com, didn't you?
Yeah, way back in the day. So after the nightclub kind of ran its course, I then went and joined the family business. My grandfather started Foremost Liquor Stores in Chicago way back in the 40s. And so there was a very small piece of that business, which was called Liquor by Wire, very similar to how FTD is for flowers. That's what we were doing for wine and champagne and spirits and gift baskets. So really, really small piece of that business that I thought had pretty substantial potential. And so after I left the nightclub and I came back to Chicago at that point to start working with my mom and my grandfather at the time, that's where I felt like the biggest opportunity was. And yeah, we launched a catalog for that in 91. And then in 1993, we put that catalog on CompuServe's electronic mall. And so that was sort of the first foray into the world of online marketing. And eventually all of that became liquor.com when we bought that domain in 1998.
Nice. And when did you write your first book?
So the first book came out right after the .com implosion, because we had the S1 filed and we were ready to go public, and that was March of 2000. And needless to say, things did not go exactly to plan at that point. And that's when I had the next reinvention and started to kind of head into the world of real estate development. So I did that for a number of years, and then there was that implosion and had to reinvent again. And that's when I really started moving down more of the personal development, self-help sort of path, if you will, of figuring I could help others avoid some of the trial and tribulation and brain damage that I had to incur in my career. And that's when I put pen to paper to write my first book. And so that came out in 2010. That first book was called Journey to You.
Oh, wow. And then now you added New York Times bestseller.
So,
what is
yeah,
your what? Is
Yeah. So that came out in 2013. What is your what? Discover the one amazing thing you were born to do. And that ended up hitting the New York Times list that same year. So yeah, that was my third book actually that I'd released.
Yeah, that's a really good book. So what are the steps that someone could take to discovering their what? So you talk about that a lot, and the one thing they were created to do.
Yeah. It's really a journey of exploration of trying to figure out what your core gift is, which reflects really how you're naturally wired to excel. That could be something like communicating or teaching or healing or entertaining, enrolling, protecting, etc. But we all really have a core gift that we all have the ability to tap into and then share. Just really depends on how you choose to share that, which is the second piece of the what is your what framework, which is really identifying then the vehicle that you use to share that gift. So you could figure out, perhaps then going through the exercises in the book, that your core gift is healing, as an example. Maybe you're just maybe you're a healer, but the question is, how do you then heal? So the vehicle is that next step. And so an example would be maybe the vehicle that you use to share your gift of healing is like massage or Reiki, or maybe you're a doctor, or something of that nature, like a medical MD doctor, et cetera. And then the last piece of the puzzle is understanding, well, who the people are. that you're most compelled to serve. And so it's the combination of the gift, the vehicle, and the people that make up the what is your what framework.
That's great. And you have said there's only one thing that separates businesses that thrive and from those that struggle to generate meaningful revenue. So
Yeah.
Do you talk about that?
Yeah, it really is a matter of having clarity around what is the conversation that you most want to be a part of. And so you have to picture, let's say you're going to a party and there's lots of different tables at that party and people just sitting around talking, having conversations, etc. And obviously, as one human being, you can only sit down at one table to have those conversations. So the question then is, as it relates to business, is if you're sitting there and trying to figure out, how does my name get thrown into that conversation at that table with lots of different conversations going on. For example, let's say one of those conversations is around finance, one is around online marketing, one is around book writing, one is around, you name it, sports, right? Whatever it is, you have to figure out how do you get your name into that conversation, right? Like podcasting is a perfect example. Based on the merits of our podcasts alone, we weren't going to be in the conversation of podcasting. I mean, we've got a couple of great shows, but we don't have Joe Rogan like numbers. We're not competing with Dave Ramsey, and we just don't have those kind of numbers. So the question is, how and why should my name be a part of that conversation? And so ultimately, once I came to the conclusion of I want to be in the conversation where podcasting is the topic at hand, I then had to come up with a different strategy for being a part of that conversation.
So why is it becoming increasingly difficult for business owners to generate the visibility that they deserve?
Well, it's not necessarily that it's becoming increasingly difficult so much as I think it's just becoming, number one, increasingly crowded with more people, really saying a lot of the same things, right? So you have more people saying a lot of the same things. And then, the reality is it's the double-edged sword of the world that we live in, of being able to connect with almost anyone at almost any time, almost anywhere on the planet, right? Which is anyone has access to those same tools. So it's not only of the matter of it being more crowded in terms of more people having that same access, but also in terms of really understanding where are the best outlets for you to dedicate your time, your energy, and your resources to. And so many businesses are just trying to do far too many things.
Now, that gets into new media, which I want to talk to you about. Could you just briefly tell us the difference between new media and old media and the benefits of new one?
I would define it as new media would be just under the category of pull media, from the standpoint of the consumer decides what they want to consume, when they want to consume it, and on their preferred device, right? So like a podcast is a perfect example of new media or a pull medium, because the consumer goes out and decides what they want to listen to, when they want to listen to it, and where and how they want to listen to it. It's not as though they're just driving down the road and you have sort of old media, right? In terms of like terrestrial radio as an example, you're just driving down the road and the only real choice you have is perhaps a particular station. And so you turn on that station and whatever song is playing is playing. I mean, you didn't request that song. I mean, I guess unless it's request hour or something of that nature, but you didn't request that song. They're playing it because that's what's in their rotation. Same thing with newspapers, same thing with television, et cetera, et cetera. And, the bottom line is I believe new media holds a significant advantage both for the consumer and the producer, because with both, you can, I mean, literally you can design whatever it is that you want to do insofar as the content that you create as a producer. No one's telling you what to do or how to do it. And then as a consumer, it's the same thing. No one's saying that you have, this or that or this or that you absolutely have to do. It's completely in your court to decide.
So having all those different new avenues, like with new media now, it's making it easier for business owners to succeed, right?
I mean, I would say yes and no. I mean, it's certainly making it easier for people to have access. If you think about like what it would have taken to start a radio station as an example, right? I mean, you're talking about in most cases millions of dollars, especially if you're going to be in a larger market that has a larger broadcast signal. So if you wanted to have a radio station in Chicago, you're going to spend millions of dollars on that station. Whereas if you wanted to launch a podcast and reach people in Chicago, I mean, you can do that tomorrow, and it really won't cost you much more than a bit of, let's just call it pocket change, and then of course your time. So from that standpoint, it's great, but at the same token, it's harder and harder to do it well. And today, I mean, you really have to create a good product. You can't just put anything out there and expect to succeed. You do have to create a really good product.
And originality too.
For sure.
Key too.
Yeah.
You talked before about entering the conversation, and with podcasting, we were introduced to you through podcasting and through podcast magazine, and the launch you did for that was so strategic and so brilliant, and it took you straight to the top of that conversation. Could you just talk about that for a second?
Yeah, there's let me back up for a second. I've had a love. I love the medium, right? I mean, first of all, you gotta have a love for what it is that you do, right? So traditional radio for me has always been kind of the holy grail. Like I always thought I would be good on a talk radio station, maybe have my own talk show. That didn't happen, for whatever reason, not the least of which is I really didn't pursue it as hard as I probably could have. But when I was introduced to podcasting in 2009, I was like, well, forget about that. I can just have my own radio station, right? So I can just do whatever I want to do and say whatever I want to say, et cetera, et cetera. So out of the gate, 10 plus years ago, when I first became familiar with podcasting, I knew it was a medium that I enjoyed and wanted to be a part of and wanted to pursue. And so I kind of danced around the medium for years and off and on and off and on. And then around 2015, I really started being more consistent about releasing episodes every single week, first with our show Reinvention Radio, and then eventually with our show Beyond Eight Figures. And so I started to see the medium grow. And, around 2015, there weren't that many shows, maybe 100,000 available podcasts at that point. So not really all that many. And started to watch it grow. Somebody said, hey, you know what, let's do an event, let's get some podcasters together and we'll do an event. And I was at that first podcast movement, and other events have come up and I've been supportive of those. And, I love what the industry is doing to support itself and how shows support other shows. And there's a lot of, there's a very communal aspect to the medium, which I very much love. And now you started to see some publications come up that were serving podcasters. And so, some really good business journals and these sort of things for podcasters. But I was sitting there in October of 2019 as the numbers continued to grow, 500,000 shows, 600,000 shows, 700,000. And I'm sitting there watching these numbers, and I'm flabbergasted that there isn't a consumer-facing publication that is designed for the fans of podcasting. Because while there are, let's just say today there's 1 million shows, and that's the current numbers, right? Just over 1 million shows. Only about 40% of those shows still release new episodes, and only about 20% of the total number of shows are producing new shows and have more than 10 episodes. So there's really only about 200,000 shows that are producing consistently and have more than 10 episodes. Yet there are millions and hundreds of millions of podcast listeners. So as I started looking at the numbers and just given my entrepreneurial background, I couldn't fathom that there wasn't a publication that was focused on serving the millions of podcast fans, and just leave the other stuff to those who want to serve the couple 100,000 or so podcasters. And that's really where the idea for Podcast Magazine was born, is let's create something that goes beyond the microphone and deeper into the lives of the shows that people love, and introduce them to shows like yours that, the fans haven't heard of, but need to be listening to. And, as well as anybody, that discovery is tough. And so we wanted to really level the playing field for podcasters in that regard as well.
Well, you didn't just create a magazine. I mean, you created one that is packed with value. I can't believe just some of the different sections you have is like really cool. Like you look at new technologies, platforms, products, and tools that impact podcast culture. But then, you have so many other things like insider look at the business of podcasts, in-depth sit downs and profiles of today's top podcasters.
Yeah.
It just goes on.
Yeah, our current issue that's dropping here very, very soon is like 150 pages. So I mean,
wow.
we got a lot of content in there, and there's definitely some degree. I guess the best way to put it is, in my mind, there's some degree of if you build it, they will come. Really felt like we needed to focus on creating a really great product first, and so I thank you for that. And I believe that we've created a really good product, and the ad revenue and the monetization strategy and all that fun stuff, certainly will catch up to where we're at from a content perspective soon.
We were featured in your ears in one of the issues. So we were so pleased about that. Thank you so much. And the other thing is you have top 50 list, and people can vote on their favorite podcasts. So if you're listening to this now, the link will be in the show notes for all of Steve's to connect with Steve, as well as to vote for us in that.
Yeah.
But you have so many things. It's just packed with value. Every issue, I just can't believe how much you have in there, how much value. And, podcasting does have such a beautiful community. It's just stunning that there wasn't a podcast magazine already out there.
Yeah.
And so you've created just what you identified and filled a needed gap for sure. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. And, it's definitely not geared towards podcasters from the standpoint of, it's not really focused on how to launch or market or monetize your podcast, although we do have a very small section that is for the professional podcaster, that's written by a couple of really accomplished guys who share some tips and strategies. But yeah, I mean, again, the idea here is let's create, so to speak, the Sports Illustrated for the world of podcasts, or kind of a Wired magazine type approach to the world of podcasts, because there's a game at hand here that we're looking to help win for the average podcaster as well. And it's a dance, because obviously we need to feature the Adam Carollas and the Dave Ramseys and so on of the world. But discoverability is a very real issue in podcasts. And so a big part of what we try to do every single month is introduce under the radar shows that podcast fans would dig in each category and may not necessarily be aware of. Like you said, we got our podcast magazine Hot 50, which is the only chart that is released monthly, that is voted on by the fans. And so it's for the fans, by the fans. Yeah. Got nothing to do with downloads. It's got nothing to do with subscribes, nothing to do with ratings or reviews. It's just, people go and vote on their 3 favorite shows. And every month we release that Hot 50 and other sections as well. But I'm a huge fan of the medium, and I know that the medium will continue to grow both in terms of listeners and also in terms of shows. So yeah, we're just excited to be kind of at I would still call it really the embryonic stages of the industry when you compare our numbers to other platforms.
Well, yeah. And I mean, you are helping a lot of, the lesser known kind of podcasts kind of get out there with like detailed reviews and profiles and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really, really awesome. Love
Yeah,
that.
thanks for that. We actually have some very bold people on our staff as well. So in addition to having our our under the radar reviews that we do every month of 19 different shows. Occasionally, some of our editors will actually do what we call overrated, which is where we review some top shows that people are listening to, but they might want to rethink listening to them. So it's we're trying to be a critical voice for the industry as well.
And you've also put together a really great directory to give listeners like a detailed contact information. So could you talk to us about that?
Yeah, we so every year we release what we call the Ultimate Directory of Podcasters, which contains detailed contact information for 670 top podcasters, and we break it down by category, description, photo, website, and we even go so far as to get their email address for you as well. So yeah, we've gone to the nth degree on that, and yeah, the Ultimate Directory of Podcasters is what that's called. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's great. And then also I wanted to talk to you about your new media conference, your new media summit. Could you talk about that for a minute?
Yeah, we've been doing the New Media Summit since 2017. That's a fairly unique event from the standpoint of we bring in 40 top podcasts and we give 150 attendees the opportunity to take center stage. And each attendee actually pitches the podcasters on who they are and what they do. And they literally get booked on the spot. I mean, our average attendee actually leaves with about 20 bookings on podcasts. Wow. Because they're not only pitching the podcasters that are there and represented as what we call them icons of influence, but a lot of the 150 attendees have podcasts, and then we live stream the event to thousands of people as well. And so they get booked from all three of those groups. So yeah, we have a 100% track record of people coming to the New Media Summit and leaving with bookings in hand. So it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's amazing. What a unique concept, and just perfect for podcasters and listeners to get good value.
Yeah, both. And the podcasters appreciate it too, because they get access to people that they wouldn't normally have access to. And then just the most amazing people show up and pitch them. So it's a pretty cool event.
That's amazing.
Do you have anything planned in the future? 2 events or?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to do another New Media Summit in September of 2020. I know things have been a little bit crazy, but hopefully by then we'll be out of this lockdown, and we do them in San Diego where it's warmer. So, hopefully the winter issue, if that's going to be an issue, won't be an issue. And, but yeah, September 10th through the 12th in San Diego is where we're doing the next one.
Great. Hey, so I wanted to ask you 5 quick questions. We call it our speed round. And just give me the first answer that comes into your head.
Yep.
So first one is, what does Steve Olsher do for fun?
That's a good question. I'm pretty, when things are not nuts in terms of, not being able to leave the house, I enjoy a good beat down and a good giving a beating in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I've been doing that for the better part of about 20 years off and on.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
What's your favorite quote?
Favorite quote? I would have to say that I'm a big fan of a lot of the the Steve-isms that I've kicked around over the last number of years and used with a lot of the private clients. But one of my favorite quotes that I use and a lot of our clients try to remember and really lean into is to stop stepping over dollars to get to dimes. And there's a lot of people out there, especially business owners, who are focusing on let's just call it the wrong things, and and they have much bigger opportunities, bigger fish to fry, if you will. But sometimes when you're in the bottle, it's just hard to see the label on the outside of the glass there, right? So it's stop stepping over dollars to get to dimes is certainly one of them.
Nice. Who has inspired you the most?
I mean, I would say on a personal level that flows into business, it would probably be my grandfather, because he was my first real mentor, and one of the only people ever in my life who never looked at me in a way other than with love and support. So. I'd have to say that was probably my grandfather for sure.
Nice. What's your favorite book?
I'm still a fan to this day. I had the opportunity of interviewing the late great J. Conrad Levinson at one of my events, and so it's a great opportunity to get to know the man behind the book Guerrilla Marketing. And believe it or not, 30 odd years later, so much of what he wrote is still very, very applicable to today's business climate and challenges.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
What is a really good tool or resource you could recommend to our listeners?
I will be the first to admit that I am a huge fan of ClickFunnels. I've been an associate of Russell Brunson since he started out way back when, and we've actually been using ClickFunnels since 2015. It's simple, it's easy. You're looking to get started online. Pretty hard pressed to find a better tool right now to use than ClickFunnels. And Dave and Russell, both really good guys.
Thanks for that. And so, lastly, how can people listening connect with you further?
I love the idea of people just getting started with Podcast Magazine. Seems to be the best place to go. And we're still giving away free lifetime subscriptions until June 1st. And then we're going to start charging. So podcastmagazine.com, probably the best place to start. And happy to connect with people there.
That's great. Now, could you just mention briefly, how can people get involved with the directory or access the directory and register for your events?
Sure. So the directory we give away at myultimatedirectory.com. So myultimatedirectory.com. And then the New Media Summit is newmediasummit.net. So newmediasummit.net.
Great. Good. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for being with us today.
Yeah.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Appreciate it. And thanks for the support of the magazine and all the fun stuff we're doing there as well.
Yeah,
yes.
We love it. It's awesome.
We love it.
Good. All right. We'll talk soon.
Wow, what a great interview with Steve Olsher. Hope you enjoyed that.
Oh, that was amazing. So just a reminder, please go to inspiringshow.com for the show notes and to get all the links to Steve, to connect with him. And also please vote for us in the Hot 50 so you can select your top 3 favorite podcasts. So vote for The Inspiring Show in the Hot 50 voting.
So until next time, remember, you have a story and your story matters.